Earlier today, my karaoke partner, State Representative Lance Pruitt, Senator Lisa Murkowski, he was over there at the White House, and Secretary of the Interior Sally Jewell basically told him, you, and the state of Alaska to pound sand. Other than that, how was your day?
Yeah. Really, how does that make you feel? You know what? The thing that's so upsetting about this is not the first time she has told Alaskans to just get over it.
Mm-hmm.
She basically told me the same. You've just got to get over it. How do you tell people who are being denied what most people in the rest of the United States of America would say is just a basic need, a life-saving connector road? How do you say, just get over it? Just get over it. There are more important things out there. It's almost breathtaking in its arrogance that this is kind of what we're dealing with back there. And it's just unfortunate that Representative Pruitt and Senator Myers, who was there, just kind of got the same thing dished out to them that unfortunately we see far too often.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think it is absolutely wonderful that two of the nicest guys you'll ever meet who've been elected to office, who are not part of the Beltway, who are not the usual suspects, travel to D.C. I've had ginger ale with Representative Pruitt. Okay, he had ginger ale. Probably something a wee bit stouter. Nice guy. And so when he asks the question about a timeline for reconsideration of the decision on the road, it isn't in a partisan, forward-leaning edge. It's someone from Alaska asking a fairly simple question. And you get rebuffed all the time. Your fights with the EPA are the stuff of Washington record. But to have someone who has, nil interaction in the White House go to the White House and have two of our representatives here be treated that way, they need to come back and tell the story again and again. And perhaps the darker part of the story is Senator Myers' question about ANWR, NPR, and Beaufort Chukchi and OCS. It's real easy to tell an oil company or the state of Alaska no on resource development when you've already shut down a road, isn't it?
Sure is. And this is just what we are dealing with this Obama administration. They might say one thing and then do another, or they may do exactly as Secretary Jewell is doing and just consistently not only say no, but do it in a callous and hard-hearted way. I sent her a letter earlier this week, and I outlined every single piece of correspondence that I have sent every time I've brought this up in hearing, her meeting directly with the people of King Cove back in March, where she promised them that she would respond to them with what her alternatives would be. And it has been radio silence since she made this decision back in December. But again, as you point out, David, it unfortunately goes beyond more than just what we're seeing from the Secretary of the Interior on King Cove. We've got these other battles where the administration basically is working against a state that really relies on our resources for our economy, for the jobs, for the people. And it's pretty much, we don't care. You guys kind of deal with it. Just don't get in our way. So they're getting pretty good at just saying no.
I have asked this question rhetorically, and I will ask the junior senator who is trying to convince the world that you and him are BFFs next week, and that is a very simple question. Is the Obama administration and the people who enable the Obama administration good for the state of Alaska? What do you say to that question?
Flat out no. Flat out no. You tell me one area where it's important to us here in the state of Alaska on our issues that this administration has been supportive in helping us advance it. Sometimes we're able to advance it in spite of them. but show me an area where they have willingly worked with us. And you're using the right terms, because it's not just the Obama administration. It is the Obama administration supported by the leadership in the Senate right now, which is led by Harry Reid. Harry Reid has not done one thing that will help us in Alaska advance our initiatives. And when you think about, okay, what are our initiatives? Well, we're an energy-rich state. We'd like to be able to access some of that, whether it is legislation that might assist us with, whether it's accessing on our public lands, whether it is energy legislation that could help us facilitate our resources. When you think about those things that would help us, we're getting no help from the majority in the United States Senate. And that is because you've got a guy who's leading, Reid, who's leading the Senate, who is there to implement the Obama administration, which is doing, in my view, as much as they possibly can to slow our state, to limit our ability to do for ourselves really what would help us as Alaskans. It's a tough place to be right now, and some days it can be pretty discouraging.
Tomorrow starts a day that is built as a tribute to a mentor, to a coworker, to a man who is family to you. Tomorrow is Ted Stevens Day. It is also day one of the 2-day air show out at J Bear. Mm-hmm. Hell of a weekend coming up. I mean, Ted would have. Gosh, first of all, I don't want a day named after me. Let's all go to the air show on Saturday and go fishing on Sunday, or flip that. I have had the other senator from the state of Alaska talk with me about the EPA, about Department of the Interior. And he has put on his shoulders, Senator Murkowski, I'm acting just like Senator Stevens would have. It is a midterm election year. I know a lot of things are written in Politico and stuff like that. If the other office in Washington, D.C. was occupied by Senator Stevens and not its current occupant, and members of the state House and state Senate had just been rebuffed like they had by the Secretary of the Interior, what would the response have been?
If Ted were in Washington, D.C., he would have found himself parked in Secretary Jewell's office demanding an immediate apology to all Alaskans. To suggest... I think we all recognize, those of us that are Alaskans to our core, know that there will never be a substitute or a replacement for Ted Stevens. Ted Stevens was a man's man. Ted Stevens was an Alaskan for all Alaska. And as one who grew up under his leadership, one who worked with him as my mentor, I do my hardest every day to emulate the man. But I know that there is no replacing Ted Stevens. I know that there is no replacing his passion and commitment for what he did for Alaska's people. And Ted wouldn't suffer fools lightly. Ted would not take sitting down a rebuff to the people of the state that he loved. And that's one of the reasons why, whether it's the fight for King Cove, I have said repeatedly, I'm not giving up on this. I'm not accepting this secretary's no for an answer. That is not how you treat the people of the state of Alaska or people anywhere in this country. So the suggestion that, we just have to, we've got to work with this secretary and kind of look the other way on this is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think her statements today to Representative Pruitt and Senator Meyer are definitive end of discussion statements. When you tell someone to get over it, or you tell Senator Meyer, I don't know why we're talking about developing oil in Anwar. I don't call it Anwar. I call it the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It is a wildlife refuge. It is not a place for resource development. Those are not, we're going to work on that. We're going to develop a consensus. We're going to come up with an action plan sort of statements. Those are, you're not going to the movie with your friends. You're not going to ask your mother. You're not going, go to your room and shut up sort of statements. There's really, in my opinion, no wiggle room on what she said today.
She is articulating, I think, what this administration, or how this administration has viewed Alaska. That we need to be that place that is kind of blocked off or separated or preserved or conserved for something at some other point in time, but certainly not anything that would allow Alaskans to have jobs and economic opportunity, jobs that can raise a family. I think what she is saying is we need to protect you from yourselves. And she feels, I think, that is her responsibility. That's not what this deal was when we came into statehood. The promises that came with this state said that we were to be able to access our lands, that we would be able to develop our resources for the good of Alaskans and the good of the country. And so what Secretary Jewell is saying, what this administration is saying to Alaska, is absolutely unacceptable in any shape or form. And whether it is rejecting a 10-mile, one-lane gravel non-commercial use road as a life-saving road, or whether it is saying, no, you don't have the ability or the right to develop your own resources, whether it be in areas that have been designated for such development or in areas that are owned and held by the state of Alaska and were shut down by a preemptive veto before we've even established what the project looks like. We as a state should be standing up and screaming at the top of our lungs and fighting with every tool that we have in our toolbox, whether it's litigation, and we all know that with litigation, the lawyers make headway before anybody else, but we can't sit back and just say, well, this is what happens when you have this administration in office. This is what happens when you have Sally Jewell as the Interior Secretary. This is why we don't give up. This is why we don't sit down and shut up and go to our room. So what I need is somebody who's standing with me in the United States Senate saying, no, this is not acceptable, and this is how we're going to be fighting back, and we're going to be camped at your office demanding access for Alaskans, demanding respect for Alaskans.
Senator, can I hold you over for just a brief period before the top of the hour?
We can do that.
Okay. We're speaking with one of 100 and friend of the show, Senator Lisa Murkowski. We'll continue our conversation next on the Dave Stieren Show. I need someone to stand side by side with me in Washington, D.C. when I fight on behalf of Alaska. Those words uttered by my guest just a few moments ago, United States Senator and friend of the show, Senator Lisa Murkowski. Do you feel you are battling the EPA, the Department of the Interior, and this administration with one arm tied behind your back?
Well, if you're going to go into a battle, you need everything that you've got. You need both arms. You need people by your side that have your back and are looking all different ways for you. Let's just take the EPA. We recognize here in this state that this is an agency that we we really have some battles royale with, whether it is what's going on with the Pebble Mine. And again, Alaskans are divided on whether we advance with the Pebble project. But I would like to think that where we come to agreement is that if a project has not yet been submitted for an application on state lands, that a federal agency wouldn't have the ability to say, nope, you can't do that even before the design has been, or the project has been submitted. And that's what we're dealing with the EPA. When we had the big battle about 4 years ago before the Senate pushing back against the EPA regulations that really kind of began the downhill slide with the overreach by the EPA when it comes to emissions. I led that fight in what was called a resolution of disapproval. Effectively, it's an attempt to veto these regulations. I didn't have my colleague in the United States Senate working with me to advance that, and in fact, he voted against it, an issue that for us in Alaska, in terms of how we work to advance our industries that help sustain us, whether it's not just our oil and gas issues, it affects our fisheries, our seafood processors. These are issues that affect us as a state, and I didn't have a colleague supporting me on it. So I need to have that.
You need help.
That partner.
You need a wingman.
Look at our delegation. We are a 3-person team. Put us up against California, New York, any other state. We're even in the Senate, and that certainly helps. But Don's kind of flying solo over there,
yeah.
and bless him, he's doing the best job that he possibly can. But we need
two people.
Have that delegation working.
That's
together
right,
Senator.
We need 2 people in the Senate working on behalf of Alaska. I appreciate your time on this so important event, and we will chat with you in the future. That is one of 100. Senator Lisa Murkowski. That's it. We'll see you Monday on the Dave Stieren Show.